Hello, my name is Campbell, and this is my Project 1 formal analysis. For my project, I decided to analyze Guernica by Pablo Picasso, as seen here. Guernica was painted by Pablo Picasso in 1937. The Spanish Republican government had commissioned Picasso to create a painting for the World Fair, shortly after the city of Guernica was bombed. Picasso chose that event as the subject to paint, resulting in Guernica. The painting is displayed in Paris's Museo Nacional Centro de Arte Reina Sofia. There's also a copy of it hanging in the United Nations headquarters. Guernica is a surrealistic cubic painting, which uses balance and contrast to express a chaotic anti-war message. The piece is most effectively analyzed by the expressive theory. Guernica is a painting using oil paints on canvas. It was created in 1937 by Pablo Picasso. The painting is 11.5 feet by 25.5 feet. The piece is abstract, as it is composed of recognizable figures such as animals, people, and light bulbs, but not in the way they are truly depicted in the real world because of the surrealism and cubism of the piece. This artwork is two-dimensional, meaning the painting is flat across the canvas. Picasso used a brilliant combination of shape, value, color, and lines, which makes his piece so effective and expressive. Guernica is a combination of organic shapes and geometric shapes. The animals and people are made of organic shapes, while most of the background is made of sharp lines and recognizable shapes. These lines lead the audience through the piece, forcing their attention to each of the disturbed figures. The color and value that Picasso employs is the most obvious in his piece. He uses a black and white color scheme with different values, which makes some of his figures distinct over the others. The painting features a display of distorted figures such as horses, bulls, and human beings. They are featured in front of doors, lamps, and walls. The entire piece is chaotic, bold, and loud. The figures look like they are screaming or in pain. The painting is scary and gruesome. The piece is historical and is Picasso's interpretation on the bombing of Guernica. He created it with the hope of communicating the horrors and consequences of war. He was commissioned to create a painting by the Spanish Republican government to be displayed in the World Fair that was happening in Paris that year. At the same time, the Spanish Civil War was occurring. Just recently, the city of Guernica was bombed by Germany because the nationalists in Spain asked them to. 1/3 of the city was either killed or injured. Picasso used this tragedy as an inspiration for his piece. Picasso uses emphasis, balance, contrast, and movement to create a feeling of horror and confusion in the viewer. His use of contrast is most evident through his employment of black and white in different values. The background is a dark gray, and most of the figures are light gray. However, there are objects that are a bright white, which the eyes are most quickly drawn to. In this way, Picasso also creates emphasis on these objects. Guernica is a very full piece. Balance is created through Picasso's even use of shapes and colors. The canvas is evenly covered and the colors are evenly distributed, leaving very little negative space. The balance that the fullness brings causes the audience to feel no comfort and only chaos while viewing this piece. Lastly, movement is created in this piece with lines and still figures. The geometric shapes and lines direct the viewer through the piece, forcing their eyes to land on certain figures. The animals and humans look like they are caught in the middle of a scream, giving the piece a frantic sense. Picasso purposely included no repetition in his piece to add to the feeling of chaos. Picasso's Guernica is an abstract and surrealistic piece. It is an anti-war piece that was inspired by the bombing of the city of Guernica in Spain. He was deeply disturbed by the event and wanted to make a statement on his feelings about war. The piece pictures humans and animals in pain and screaming. With this subject, Picasso hoped to display the fear and inhumaneness of war. Picasso wanted his painting to personify grief and loss and serve as a visual representation of the effects of war. At first, Picasso's piece was met with mixed responses. Though it was a beautiful piece, when displayed at the World's Fair, people believed it to be out of touch. However, it is now understood as an international anti-war symbol. The title is significant to the meaning of the painting because it allows the work to become specific. The piece is meant to be general, applicable to all warfare, but the name, Guernica, allows the viewer to understand what prompted Picasso to make the painting, which allowed Picasso to make a specific statement against the war in Spain. The elements of design that I've already discussed, such as contrast, value, balance, and movement, all work together to make this piece haunting and chaotic. The combination of these elements create a frantic piece, which forces the viewer to feel uncomfortable and afraid, allowing Picasso to communicate his message on the inhumanity of war. Using the formal art theory, I would consider Picasso's Guernica to be an ineffective art piece. Each of the subjects do not rely on another to complete the piece. Rather than being artfully constructed, the piece is overwhelming and crowded. Contrast, balance, and lines are used effectively to create a cohesive moving piece. However, the neglect of negative space and true emphasis cause the piece to lose some of its effectiveness. Using a contextual theory, I would consider Picasso's Guernica to be extremely effective. Picasso used this piece to make a statement about the Spanish Civil War and war in general. His painting communicates pain, horror, and fear. It was displayed in the World's Fair in Paris for thousands of people to see immediately after the bombing of Guernica. This allowed him to reach a vast audience who could then understand the terrible consequences of war. The dark political message that Guernica communicates makes it an effective art piece. Using the expressive art theory, I would consider Picasso's Guernica highly effective. The contrast, balanced lines, and haunting subjects all combine to create a sense of horror and fear in the viewer. The black and white color scheme helps to communicate the dark message of the piece. The subjects of the piece look as if they are in pain, which causes the viewer to empathize. As well, the chaos of the piece clearly expresses Picasso's intense feelings. I think the most efficient theory in evaluating Guernica is expressivism. Picasso was deeply distraught after the bombing of Guernica and with the Spanish Civil War in general. He wanted to use his commission as a means of demonstrating to the world the horrors that were occurring in Spain. While this is contextual, Picasso's real goal was to communicate his anger and frustration that he immediately felt with the rest of the world. People are meant to see this painting and feel the same discomfort and anger at war that Picasso felt while painting it. In order to appreciate this painting, one must acknowledge the feelings that are painted in it, which formal analysis does not allow. And while contextualism is efficient in judging this piece, it does not appreciate the message of Guernica as well as expressivism does. Therefore, the most effective method is the expressive theory. Picasso's painting Guernica is a passionate piece he created just after the bombing of Guernica during the Spanish Civil War. He wanted to make a statement about the specific war and about war in general. His painting is in black and white, depicting humans, horses, and bulls, along with doors and light fixtures. The painting is a surrealist and cubist abstract painting. Picasso effectively uses contrast, balance, value, shape, and movement to guide his viewers through his painting and communicate the violent and gruesome consequences of war. These are my works cited. Thank you for watching.